What's going on YouTube? It's your boy Dark. I'm back at you guys with another main box review via leaks from Duel Links Meta. We will be reviewing the new box coming out, Infernity Destruction, which will be introducing the not really long awaited, but the long awaited to get support Infernity Archetype, while introducing Armageddon, the Weather, Odd Eyes, Perform Pal, and some more, as well as support for some of our fan favorites for hire, koa'ki, Xavers, and yours truly, Infernity. So, super excited to get down to the details of this review. So let's begin. The first archetype that we'll be reviewing, one of the main archetypes of this box, Demise, King of Armageddon, and I freaking hate this archetype because of the TCG. All this means is it's more cancer for us. So with this card, what makes him so powerful, you pretty much summon him. You're not going to be using the normal ritual to summon him, but when he's on the field, you can pay 2,000 life points to destroy all the other cards on the field. So literally, this guy's going to come out and wipe out the entire field and leave you open for any other cancer your opponent wants to throw at you. And one specific piece of cancer I want to talk about, because this is how they use it in the TCG. You got plenty of ways to search it through the Senju, the Sonic Bird, the Gishki chain, but you activate the advanced ritual art, so all you really need is a Demise and a card in hand. You mill either a Metal Armor Bug or multiple Insect Knights to easily special summon a Doom Dozer, or you summon Aztekapede, which are both both of these attacks will be very big. So this deck really that's what this deck is all going to be about. If anybody's running this, they're going to be about that cancer and opening your opponent up, popping the field, and attacking with, pretty much whatever swarm they can throw at you. So that's what makes this deck relevant just by itself. So I already saw when I looked at this card, there's going to be nothing that comes good of it. The next card we have here, Demise, Agent of Armageddon, which is like a mini version of this card. Pretty much while he's on the field, he is Demise, King of the Armageddon. When he's ritual summoned, you can destroy a face-up monster. Now the way it's worded, I want to say it's non-targeting, but we'll find out when it comes out. But also, while it's face-up, pretty much if it's sent to the graveyard, you could target a ritual monster you control while it's face up on the field. Your opponent can't activate effects in response to that target's effects, which I don't think is going to be super relevant, but you can sneak in, you can basically knock out counter traps and things like that to keep your opponent from doing things in response to your ritual monsters. But usually you'll probably just be running Armageddon, the Demise, just to pop the field. Then Cycle of the Underworld is the main ritual to summon Demise or Ruin, but the main reason you're going to be using this card is basically to while it's in the graveyard during your main phase, you can shuffle it back into the deck to add a Demise from your graveyard to your hand. And then our last card here in this archetype, Breaking of the World. Once per turn, you can target a ritual monster you control and show that to your hand. Pretty much you can manipulate levels, but the juice of this card really comes from when you ritual summon a Demise or Ruin. You can either draw a card or destroy a card on the field when they're summoned. So nothing too great, but just all stuff that will aid in this archetype. Really, I think the archetype's going to really come down to just this combos right here if you're going to be running the Demise. So if you guys are going to be trying it out, definitely worth it. So the next archetype we have here is the Weather archetype. Now, I'm a bit unfamiliar with this archetype because I've never seen this before until this game. I definitely didn't see it during my TCG journeys. But after doing research on the deck, this deck's a pretty interesting one. I want to say one of the more playable ones out here. But basically how it works, so we have Weather Painter Snow. Most of these weather painters, they're going to have this ability, which is the second one that you're seeing right here, where during the standby phase, after the turn they were banished for the effect of a weather spell or trap, you can special summon it. So it makes a lot of the cost of your spell and traps free. What makes this one so special and why it's the UR is because this one will when it's normal summon, will let you summon a weather spell and trap from your deck face up in the spell or trap zone. kind of seems irrelevant at this point in time, but each one of these weather canvases we'll go over, which is their spell and traps, they give your monsters abilities while they're face up on the field. So starting with the weather snowy canvas, pretty much weather effect monsters in the main monster zones of the column that it's in and adjacent columns, which are the ones next to it, will gain this effect. So that means, I think if it's in the middle, that should mean that it'll touch all monster zones. So you can give all your monsters the effect, which is a quick effect, so you can also dodge spell and trap effects, as this is the cost. To add, pretty much this snowy canvas will let you, all your monsters become this effect that lets you banish them to search a weather card from your deck to your hand. So the way this card is worded, you can't add cards from the deck to your hand except by drawing them for the rest of the turn. So technically you're going to banish one time to do the search, but that's really good. Every turn you're going to be searching key cards. As well as with the Painter Snow, you're going to be playing that key spell and trap from your deck. So very useful. So right off the top, so we have a way to cycle through our deck. So we have that consistency. We got even a monster for consistency as well. So let's continue on. The next one here, which I think will be the main removal of this archetype, the Weather Thundery Canvas. Pretty much this one gives your monster the ability to return, pretty much all your monsters get the ability banish this card when you're battling with an opponent's monster, to return that monster to their hand. So right when you're battling those synchros, you're gonna attack into it, banish, bounce back to your deck. So good way to get rid of really hard to summon monsters, because your opponent's gonna be so annoyed as you're just bouncing everything back to their hand. So I think this will be the key removal, and definitely a must, definitely a 3 of. The next card we have here, this one's a bit separate from the typical Weather Painter. This one, when it's in your graveyard, you can send a face-up continuous spell and trap you control, which is all the weathery cards. Special summon it from your graveyard in defense mode and place the weather spell and trap from your hand in the spell and trap zone. So he'll be recycling himself to special summon himself from the graveyard. And then, like I said, they all have the effect where they banish. When they're banished, you'll special summon them in the next standby phase. So Painted the Sun going to be a crucial card, and whenever it hits the graveyard, you'll toss a spell or trap to the graveyard to bring them back. Bring them back. Now this is the generic Weather Painter. He doesn't have any really special effects. He just has the lovely place a weather spell trap from your deck into the face-up spell and trap zone, and then he has the banish effect. That's really it. Nice, decent attack. But that's really his purpose, just going to be another weather pointer to run. Now this one, I was a bit iffy about, the Weather Cloudy Canvas, because if you already have the trap to get rid of the monsters out of your way, then what's the point of giving your monster the ability to banish a card to target another one to half its attack so it can attack directly? I don't really see the point in it. Maybe you just control them with the trap until you bounce out their whole field and you just go in directly, because all of them have pretty decent attack. So I do feel like this definitely deserves a mention, but I'm kind of iffy on it right now at this current time. The next card we have here, Weather Painter Rain. Now this one's a bit different from, because its effect only triggers on special summon. So I don't know if this is going to help or hurt the deck, but when it's special summon, you could play a weather spell and trap from your hand in the face-up spell and trap zone. So it's not even from the deck. So I don't know if we'll be running this, but it's definitely good to have another weather monster in the deck. And then last but not least, this one is definitely different from the other one. This seems like sort of a power play, but you could lock yourself out with this one. Pretty much if another face up the weather monster you control is sent to the graveyard, you could target 2 weather spell and traps in your graveyard and place them face up in your spell and trap zone. So if you're only sitting on 1 and you need those extra 2 to go to the graveyard, Painter Cloud is like a power play, maybe a 1 of in the deck, because it's more of a late game card with you having to set it up. But I like it. The last 2 cards here are extremely special. I like this one specifically. The Sunny Canvas says banish this card and then target a monster you control and tribute it. So banish another card, tribute another one, and special summon a weather monster from the graveyard with a different name than that one you picked. And the beautiful thing about this is that you can attack with that monster and then banish the other one and then tribute and attack. So you can get multiple attacks in a turn, as well as you can reuse key monsters that were put in your graveyard. And also this will trigger like your rain, it will trigger your weather painter rain as well. So just some things to think about. But as I said, you're still dodging cards with the quick effect. And then the last card of this archetype, probably one of my favorite parts about this archetype, they got a little bit of disruption going on for them. And basically how this card's a bit tricky, but like all of them, it gives all your monsters this ability. But you have to wait for either you or your opponent to add a card from their deck to their hand. If your opponent adds it, you banish it from their hand to make them draw a card. So you banish your monster, which is free, banish their card. Now if you do it to yourself, so if you add a card from your deck to your hand, which will be a weather painter, you banish it from your hand to the graveyard, so it'll trigger its effect to special summon next turn, and you get a free draw. So the best things in life are free, and this deck really shows that. So this is definitely the second most exciting archetype I want to try out here. This definitely seems playable, and I think this weather thundery canvas is really what's going to set the deck off. It's not really an archetype, it's one of the little splash extras that we get in here at Odd Eyes. Now, I know nothing about this archetype from the TCG, but I know that I competed in like a real life Duel Links tournament, and I ended up pulling these in the packs that they gave us. But the way this card works, Odd Eyes Saber Dragon, pretty much if it's in your hand, you contribute a light monster and send one Odd Eyes Dragon from your hand, deck, or your side of the field to the graveyard. And if you do, you special summon this card from your hand. Now, the secondary effect, which is kind of irrelevant because we have to bet on our opponent being able to destroy a card our opponent controls. Like, you will be able to destroy another monster they control. So if that happens, you know, lucky you. But I feel like what this card is really about, the first thing that comes to mind when I think of light monsters is Blue Eyes. So how can we get the most out of this effect and get some more out of it, right? Well, first thing, Sage, Stone of Ancient, Stone of Legend, Master with the Eyes of Blue. All these cards pay for themselves, you know. Sage lets you search a stone, Stone lets you summon a Blue Eyes from the deck, Stone of Legend lets you search a Blue Eyes, and then Master with the Eyes of Blue, when you summon it, you get a light tuner out your graveyard. So, say you play that, you gain your advantage, you summon Odd Eyes and tribute, you send the Odd Eyes Dragon, but it is a dark, which fuels us for our Chaos Dragon Levineer. Now I know what you're thinking, man, this is kind of bricky. So maybe we'll get traded in the future or whatever, but imagine Sage, Odd Eyes, tribute the monster off the deck, get the fodder for the Levineer. Like, you can make some big plays with this card. But honestly, the only other light archetype I could think of with this deck is Lightsworn, so really Blue Eyes is the only one that really speaks to me about this archetype. So I use that to give you guys an idea how it works, but honestly, that's all we can really do with this deck. Perform Pals, and boy was it a lot of cards, but I kind of weeded out all the useless ones, and now this deck is all about Perform Pal Thunder Rhino. This card, pretty much while it's on the field, your opponent monsters your opponent controls can only attack him as an attack target and not your other Perform Pals. But when it's in the graveyard and a Perform Pal you control will be destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can banish him from your graveyard instead. So I'm calling it right now that this card is a 3 of. This deck is about setting up soft locks. So one of the cards that's going to provide pressure while that soft lock is being created, Perform Pal Swordfish. On summon, it makes your opponents lose 600 attack and defense. But while he's on the field and you special summon monsters, your opponent's monsters lose 600 attack and defense, and this is not till the end of the turn. These are permanent losses. So what you do, you use Perform Pal Friend Donkey to set it up. because this lets you special summon. This card special summon, you could target a level 4 or lower perform power monster from your hand or graveyard and special summon it. So you use perform power, you either bring out the Swordfish or the Thunder Rhino, preferably the Thunder Rhino to lock them out, and then you start dropping the Swordfish on them and just keep reducing their attack, just keep reducing it until it's nothingness. So looks like we got some pretty cheese like Stally type support stuff. Then the 2 support cards here, Illusion Balloons. It's basically a quick play card that when a monster is destroyed during that turn, you can activate the top 5 cards of your deck and special summon a perform pile amongst them. So this is going to be your way to defend yourself and swarm the field with those key perform piles to put in the graveyard. And then perform pile recasting is literally just a magical mallet, but only for your perform power monsters. But when you put them back into the deck, you draw the amount that you put in +1. So what I like about this one is that it's better than mallet because it's not a -1 off the bat. But it also puts key cards in your deck that to get you more into the cards that you need. The more you know, right? So Samorg, pretty pricey archetype. I would say this is probably the more expensive of the archetype. Sorry, of the box. So Samorg, Bird of Bringing. So this card, pretty much on his normal summon, it'll add a Samorg card from your deck to your hand. So this is this engine's consistency card. So whatever we need, we're going to be adding to the deck with the Samorg, Bird of Bringing. And while it's in your graveyard, your opponent controls no spell or traps, you can special summon it in defense mode, but you banish it when it leaves the field. And among all the Samorg cards, most of them are going to have this effect to bring it back from the graveyard when your opponent has no spell and trap. So, just mental note that. So Bird of Bringing is our consistency card. Our next UR here, this is our boss monster. So this is a pretty tricky card. Samorg of Darkness. So pretty much while it's face up on the field, it is a Dark and Wind attribute. And he is the only dark attribute that I've seen in this archetype, so he will function as a wind and dark. If you tribute summon a wind or dark monster, then you can special summon this monster from your graveyard or your hand. His secondary effect, when a spell or trap is activated, you contribute a wind monster to negate it and destroy it. And that is why you will be special summoning your Samorgs from the graveyard. So the whole idea is to bring out Samorg of Darkness, either by tributing for one of these two, because these are the only Samorgs right now currently that we contribute for, or you're just gonna have to tribute the old-fashioned way with him to bring him out easily. So your small Samorgs are gonna be fodder for your negates. So that's how this card is going to work. So let's dive more into the smaller monsters here. Samorg, Bird of Beginning. So this one is a bit different. So when you normal summon it, it activates its effect to allow you during the main phase to special summon a Samorg monster in addition to your normal summon. And then it has a secondary effect which lets you bring it back from the graveyard. So the idea of this one, Samorg, Bird of Beginning, you summon it, and then you summon another Samorg, probably the Bird of Beginning, and then you tribute them both off for your Samorg of Darkness, or any other Samorg monster like the two that we see in the card trader right here. So this is really your turbo card. So I don't know how necessary having the turbo is, but that's how you'll be able to easily summon your Bird of Darkness directly from your hand. Now, one of this deck's key search cards, Samorg Onslaught, is a bit tricky card. Listen, hear me out here. It lets you discard a Winged Beast monster to add 2 Samorg monsters with different attributes from your deck to your hand. Now, like I said earlier, the only attributes that this deck has is wind. So when you do the search, it's really only going to allow you to add some Morga Darkness plus every other wind monster in your deck. So some Morga Darkness into Bird of Bringing, and then you can set up a future play. Or if you already have the Bird of Bringing in your hand, you can search some Morga Darkness with the Bird of Beginning, and then summon the Bird of Beginning, normal summon the Bird of Bringing, get the search, and then tribute summon. So you got some cool little nifty ways to set up this effect. But also, when it's in the graveyard, you can banish it from the graveyard to reveal a winged beast monster in your hand, and reduce the levels of the monsters in your hand with that name by 1 for the rest of the turn. You can do it more than once in a turn, so if you have multiple, then you could banish multiple in a turn and stack it. The next bird we have here, it's gonna have this, they all have the same effect where when you bring it back from the graveyard. So this one, when it's normal summon, you can target a card in your opponent's spell and trap zone and return it to the hand. Then the Calamity lets you send some more card from your deck to the graveyard. So you'll definitely be sending your Bird of Darkness. What worries me about this deck is that you bring out these monsters with fodder, so you need some way to defend it. So maybe this deck will run back like heavy back row or something to protect those small monsters, because when you bring them back, all your opponent has to do is just attack over them. So how are you really gonna get your negates in? But overall, I like this archetype and I see a lot of future potential within it. It looks fun off the bat. So we'll see when we get it. For hire. Let's go, boys. Finally. And you be the judge on how well this is gonna work out for us. So the first arch monster we get is Filo Messenger for hire. Pretty much all these monsters are gonna have the good old for hire effect, special summon for hire from your hand. But when this card is face up on the field and you special summon a for hire monster, you target a for hire monster from your graveyard, special summon it in defense. Now with the 0/0 attack, you know, for hires are very susceptible to, you know, locking themselves up in the 3 monster zones. So 0 attack really makes me think, and then the fact that you need a for hire in the graveyard to bring it back in defense mode. When you summon a for hire, automatically when you make this play, you're locked down. So I don't know how I feel about the Filo, but return to the bottom of the deck after leaving the field the monster you brought back. Is that really helping or hurting? The next card we have here, Helmsman for hire. Now, while he's on the field, if a monster for hire is special summon, while it's face up, you can discard a for hire card to draw a card. A for hire to draw a card. Now, this seems a bit more useful because he has a nice little 2K booty, but even that's not big. What I'm noticing about these monsters in their 0 attack, this lets you at least fill your graveyard up. But you do need to draw you have to do a for hire monster and draw a card. But the value I see in these cards is that we don't really, in our normal rotation, we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different names. Back in the day, we used to run like a high monster count of for hire, which you can't really do now because, you know, a lot of these cards are limited. So I think the greatness of these is that you'll be able to splash like one of them in the deck to have that utility. But I'm still kind of unsold on the Filo. But Helmer will let you draw and discard and go through your deck, as well as set up your graveyard for Mayhem for hire and still Strategist for hire. So that's what I like about, I like Helmer a lot more than the Filo. And then the last for hire we're getting here, Bravo, which is actually another for hire, which is pretty interesting. Pretty much if a for hire monster special summon, while this one's face up on the field, you can have all your for hire gain 500 attack and defense until the end of the turn. So 1900 attack plus 500, he's going up to a massively 2400. Your biggest monster, Dinah, is going up to 3k, while Wiz is going up to 3200 defense and 2100 attack. So the real trick with this is activating the Mayhem for hire while he's face up on the field. So you can use his effect offensively and defensively, but generally this card does not provide immediate advantage, and that's what I kind of don't like about it. So These cards, in my opinion, are okay. They don't strike me as like, I gotta have these cards. Koa'ki Core Overclock. So we all know Koa'ki, that super aggressive heavy deck that just blows your field up and just goes in. Well, now they got a new toy to play with. Pretty much what it does is it pumps all your face-up Koa'ki by 500 attack naturally while it's face-up on the field. But during your main phase, you can discard an Iron Core to have all your face-up Koa'ki gain 1,000 attack until the end phase. You open your opponent up, you can now make a simple Urnite play. Urnite into a Sandman or Urnite into a Koa'ki Ice, a game-winning play. And if you have the Maximus to top it all off, you're just ridiculous, bro. You're just ridiculous. So there's really not nothing much to say about this card. Pretty much Koa'ki, the only thing they gain out of this is another card to help them in forcing that OTK. We're finally getting some more Xaver support. So I think this is the third box they've debuted in. So this time we're finally getting Xaver Airbellum. And now this card, pretty much when it directly attacks, you can discard a random card from your opponent. When it inflicts battle damage to your opponent by an attack, you can discard one random card from your opponent's hand. But it also doubles as a level 3 tuner. So we have a new level 3 tuner that is also searchable by Ember's Blade and Dark Soul. Other than that, it doesn't really provide us anything other than another tuner that we have access to, and another searchable card through Dark Soul. But the two cards that we're getting, which are going to be super crucial, Gotham's Emergency Call. This is like the Six Samurai card, double-edged sword technique. If you control a face-up Xaver monster on the field, or your opponent controls one, you can target 2 Xavers in your graveyard and special summon them. So imagine summoning like a Full Helm Knight, and then bringing out 2 level 4 or lower, so bring out like a Dark Soul, and then a Bogart Knight, or a Dark Soul and an Arabellum, and then then bring out Hyunlei, pop the back row, or bring out Sosa, and then pretty much he can't be destroyed by traps, and you know, he could pop any monster. Like, you got options, but generally the monsters that you special summon will not be destroyed in the end phase, so you can bring back any Xaver monsters, I just noticed, because it's not limited to level 4. So wow. So crucial card here. And the last card I want to review here, Saber Hole. They are getting a counter trap that negates any summon of a monster and destroys it while you control a face-up Xaver monster. So not only do they have Saber Hole, they have Saber Slash. So one of the ways to go play around these traps, you know, you overcommit to the field, but if you overcommit against Xavers, they're gonna cut you down with the Saber Slash. And if you don't commit, then they're gonna pop you with the counter trap and keep you from committing. So I'm really excited to try out the Saber Hole. I'm really excited to try out the Emergency Call and Arabellum just because I want to. I'm super excited for Xavers though. I don't know if this will make the meta relevant. Finally, we're getting support for Infernities. Finally get Infernity Archfiend in our hands. Yes! So pretty much how this card works, this is one of the key cards to make the Infernity archetype work. Without this card, we cannot make it work, and finally we have it. Just like any Infernity card, when you have 0 cards in your hand, you have to top deck this card. You add, when you do, you special summon it, and then you add an Infernity card from your deck to your hand. The key card will be adding Infernity Launcher. Infernity Launcher, pretty much once per turn, you can send an Infernity card monster you control from your hand to the graveyard. But when you have no cards in your hand, you can send it to the graveyard to target 2 Infernity monsters in your graveyard and special summon them. So the key thing we want to point out here is that you must have no cards in your hand to activate and resolve this effect. So if your opponent somehow puts a card in your hand at the activation or when you're about to resolve it, you will lose the effect. or if you try to add a card to your hand, you will lose the effect. So make sure you do this as clean as possible. But when you summon them, you special summon them, you add a card, and it's not once per turn. So if you have multiple ways to special summon them, aka Necromancer, Infernity Launcher, Infernity Mirage, even Infernity Force, but we're probably not going to be running that card. You'll be able to special summon them and trigger his effect. So Infernity Launcher is the key card and the most oppressive card, and we'll be able to run 3 of. So load your graveyard, fill it up with Infernity monsters, and special summon them when you have no cards in your hand by sending this to the graveyard. So the key thing I want you guys to note, on a lot of these special summons, they don't designate levels on the Infernity monsters, they just say Infernity monsters. So a lot of these cards will be able to bring back your Synchros, a lot of these will be able to bring back your properly summoned Infernity monsters. So if you have them in the graveyard, make sure you're bringing them back. Infernity Randomizer. Don't underestimate this card. So the thing I want to talk about here, you have no card in your hand and you're able to juke a free card out of it. So if you have no cards in your hand, you could draw a card and reveal it. If you draw a monster, you inflict 200 damage on the level of that monster to your opponent. But if you draw a spell and trap, you take 500. So both are small costs. What this card is all about is just getting the free cards. Now, that does it for the box. This box is really about us getting the Infernity Launcher and the Infernity Archfiend. But wait, there's more. We just got a Kalen event and we got a bunch of leaks. So I feel like this review is incomplete without talking about those specific cards. So let's do that right now. In the Crash Town rewards, we are finally getting Infernity Doom Dragon, which is one of the key synchros in this deck. Once per turn, when you have no cards in your hand, you can destroy an opponent's monster and inflict half of its attack to your opponent. This is one of your win conditions. Now, I don't know how many barriers we'll be getting, but this is, in the TCG, this was the card. You waste your hand, you set up a bunch of synchros, and you lay down a bunch of barriers. Pretty much when your opponent activates anything while you have a face-up attack position Infernity monster and no cards in your hand, you negate it. This is like Champion's Vigilance for Infernity monsters. So if we get 3 of, you best believe you're running 3 of in the deck. But if I were to guess, I think we'll only get 1. I'm super excited for this box. This box is definitely much playable than the last one. So I hope you guys join me for the review. For the gameplay. With that being said, that is my review. If you guys enjoyed the review, feel free to leave some comments in the chat box, as well as thank you all for coming out. Thank you for your time. Duel Links Lounge, we out of here. Goodbye.